he held it up to me in his hand, and all the little broken pieces and the edges sticking out sideways, and it took me a minute to even recognize what it was. Over the Christmas holidays, we had visitors in our home, of course, and one of them was bouncing a giant rubber ball through the house and broke something. And as he brought it to me and handed it to me, I could tell he was shaking a little bit, like he was afraid he was about to get yelled at. And when he handed it to me, I just took it from him, and I took it and laid it down somewhere, and he just looked at me, and I said, "It happens. It happens." And he had a look of shock for a minute, and then he went off to play again. And I'm sure my kids were looking at me like, "It happens? Are you kidding me? You would have gone ballistic on me. You would have thrown things and yelled and all kinds of stuff if I had broken something like that, especially bouncing a ball in the house when I know better, and especially when it's nice weather outside and I could have been outside with the ball." As I had a chance to think back on the moment, my gut reaction at the moment was, well, we'll have to get another one. But as I had a chance to reflect, to think more deeply about that small moment in time, I also had a chance to think back on how many small moments in time just like that have I had since my children were born, now the youngest one 18 years ago. And as I began to sift back and forth between encounters like that and my reactions to them, I realized that in the last probably 3, maybe 4, 5 at the tops years, the who that I am is completely different. The person reacting to him with the broken object is entirely different than the person that would have reacted to him 5 years ago in exactly the same scenario. Now, I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I have been on a intentional, personal quest to be a better person, to be a better father, a better husband, a better leader, a better teacher, a better speaker. And none of that happens by accident. In fact, if you don't make a conscious effort and work with intentionality and awareness, it doesn't happen at all. There is nothing in this universe getting better of its own accord. Nothing. Now, granted, if you watch a child grow from infancy to adulthood, there's a progression of maturity. There's a progression of physical growth and mental growth and intellectual growth and spiritual growth. But there's also a cycle, and that growth begins at one point to decline in all of those same ways. Perhaps maybe spiritual growth continues to grow. I was chatting yesterday with a 94-year-old woman who still quotes scripture pretty regularly. She's pretty good at it. But the idea that our bodies are getting better unless we're doing something intentional, that our minds are getting better unless we're doing something intentional, the idea that our lives are getting better unless we're doing something intentional, it's a fallacy. It doesn't happen. The idea that our bodies will evolve into something spectacular with no effort, it's a myth. It's not going to happen. The question, though, is what does it take to become a better person? I think part of that starts with the introspection. It starts with asking the question, what could I do better? What could I do differently? What things in my life do I need to get rid of? What things in my life do I need to hold on to? What things in my life, attitudes, behaviors, actions, do I need to stop doing? And what do I need to replace that with? David had the same idea in Psalm 139. The ironic thing is a lot of people read Psalm 139 and they only read the middle, the part that I put on the screen. It's a very famous part. Is there any place I can go to avoid your spirit, to be out of your sight? If I climb the sky, you're there. If I go underground, you're there. If I flew on morning's wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a minute. You're already there waiting. Then I said to myself, oh, he even sees me in the dark. At night, I am immersed in light. In fact, darkness isn't dark to you. Night and day, darkness and light, they're all the same to you. See, that's a very famous passage of Scripture. A lot of people read that and they quote that and they talk about No matter what's going on in my life, God's there. He's available to me. He's watching out for me. He follows me everywhere. But you've got to put it into context of the bookends of that same passage. So I'm going to read, it's a bit lengthy, but I'm going to read the whole 139 Psalm to you. This is the bookend that opens it. And you'll hear it duplicated at the end. He said, God, investigate my life. Get all the facts firsthand. I am an open book to you. Even from a distance, you know what I'm thinking. You know when I leave and when I get back. I'm never out of your sight. You know everything I'm going to say before I start the first sentence. I look behind me, and you're there. Then up ahead, and you're there too. Your reassuring presence coming and going, this is too much, too wonderful. I can't take it all in. Is there any place I can go to avoid your spirit, to be out of your sight? If I climb to the sky, you're there. If I go underground, you're there. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a minute. You're already there waiting. Then I said to myself, oh, he even sees me in the dark. At night, I'm immersed in the light. In fact, darkness isn't dark to you. Night and day, darkness and light, they're all the same to you. Oh, yes, you shaped me first inside and then out. You formed me in my mother's womb. I thank you. High God, you are breathtaking. Body and soul, I'm marvelously made. I worship in adoration. What a creation. You know me inside and out. You know every bone in my body. You know exactly how I was made bit by bit. How I was sculpted from nothing to something. Like an open book, you watched me grow from conception to birth. All the stages of my life were spread out before you. The days of my life all prepared before I had even lived one day. Your thoughts, how rare, how beautiful. God, I'll never comprehend them all. I couldn't even begin to count them, any more than I could count the sand of the sea. Oh, let me rise in the morning and live always with you. And please, God, do away with the wickedness for good. And you murderers, out of here. All the men and women who belittle you, God, infatuated with cheap God imitations. See how I hate those who hate you, God. See how I loathe all this godless arrogance. I hate it with pure, unadulterated hatred. Your enemies are my enemies. Investigate my life, O God. Find out everything about me. Cross-examine and test me. Get a clear picture of what I'm about. See for yourself whether I've done anything wrong. Then guide me to the road to eternal life. See, one of the challenges we have in our culture, in our society, is the idea that everything is about me. It's about me being happy. It's about me having what I want. It's about me getting along with everything that I desire, that I seek after, that I aspire to be. It's about my dreams. It's about my goals. It's about my finances. It's about my life. In this passage, David's saying, I know, God, that you know everything about me. You knew me in my mother's womb before I took my first breath. You knew who I would be and what job I would have and who I would marry and who my kids would be. Not because it's predetermined and dictated and you don't have a choice, but because God's understanding of time and hours are completely different. We look down the road to our 90th birthday and think entirely different about that than God does. We think about it as some far future date that we may or may not ever see. God's already seen it. He knows what you'll have for breakfast on your 91st birthday. He knows where you'll be when your 92nd rolls around. He knows who you'll be in contact with and who you'll be spending your day with and who you'll be talking with. God knows all that stuff. We see it as far future tense. God sees it as now. When we ask the question, God, investigate my life. Who am I? We've got to be willing to sit for a moment with that answer. I remember getting scolded as a child, and one of the first questions that was often asked was, what have you done? Why don't people like me? Well, maybe it's because you have a bad attitude. Maybe it's because you're rude to the people around you. Maybe it's because you're so self-seeking and self-manipulative and self-controlling that no one can stand to be around you.
Running a successful business means turning great ideas into reality and leading a motivated team to help you get things done. You know how to make your business grow, and you're working hard to make it happen. But being in charge means more paperwork and administration than you bargained for. Managing payroll, withholding taxes, workers' comp, those responsibilities can easily distract you from the work that really matters. Plus, to find and keep your best talent, you've got to offer great benefits, costs that only seem to go higher every year. And with so many new rules and regulations, not to mention healthcare reform, it's more important and harder than ever to stay in compliance. But you can't let fines and penalties eat up what's left of your profits, so you're stuck balancing HR administration and benefits headaches instead of focusing on the work that's crucial to your success. But what if you could let someone else take over those responsibilities so that you could focus on what's really important to your business? That's exactly what Insperity's Workforce Optimization is designed to do. It's a comprehensive HR solution that manages your administrative duties and supports your strategic goals. Here's how it works. An Insperity Business Performance Advisor sits down with you to uncover your specific challenges and offers a comprehensive solution that's right for your company. Then, when you're ready, a team of Insperity's HR professionals crafts a customized service plan for your business, a plan that aligns with your strategic priorities and manages all those administrative headaches that have been draining so much of your time. Also, when you begin working with Insperity, you'll be able to provide your team with world-class benefits at an affordable price, making it easier to attract new employees and keep the ones you've got. Plus, your Insperity service team is always up to speed on ever-changing regulations, making sure you stay in compliance. Insperity's Workforce Optimization solution handles all of your HR and benefits administration smoothly and effectively, and empowers you and your employees to concentrate on what truly matters, making your business prosper. Contact Insperity for a free consultation. Visit us at Insperity.com today.
I remember getting scolded as a child, and one of the first questions that was often asked was, "What have you done?" And it always rattled my mind to try to answer, well, I broke something, or I took something, or is that the question you're asking? What do you mean, what have you done? Are we talking about the consequences or the circumstances of what has happened because of my actions? Or here was the better one, what were you thinking? I wasn't. That's why it happened. Have you ever found yourself in that place? But when we turn to God and we say, investigate me, find everything about me. Tell me what I need to change. Tell me what I need to fix. There is a $3 billion life coaching industry right now asking the same question. What's wrong with me? Why can't I make more money? How come my relationships are falling apart? Why am I not moving on to success the way that I want to be? How come I don't have everything that I desire to have? Why don't people like me? And those questions seem, I don't know, frivolous until you begin to get the answers. Then they seem challenging. They seem almost accusatory, almost derogatory, almost inflaming. You get frustrated and irritated when someone says, well, how come I'm not making the money that I want to be making? And the answer is, well, because you've maxed out your potential. You haven't continued to learn in the industry that you work in. You're not willing to show up earlier and stay a little later. Your work ethic is slipping. And as a result of that, you're not as productive as you were 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago. You've gotten lazy. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody. But when it's reality, it's highly important that we ask ourselves why. Why am I slipping? Why have I taken my hand off the wheel, so to speak? Why have I let off the gas? Why am I not working as hard? Why am I less focused on others? Why am I not serving at the level that I could be, whether it's a volunteer or in my job? Why am I not giving back to the level that I should be? And all of those are perfectly valid questions, and all of those are very important questions. Why don't people like me? Well, maybe it's because you have a bad attitude. Maybe it's because you're rude to the people around you. Maybe it's because you're so self-seeking and self-manipulative and self-controlling that no one can stand to be around you. Now, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying if you're looking in the mirror and asking yourself some of these questions, you might not like the answers, but they're an opportunity. They're an opportunity for you to ask, what could I do differently? When my children were growing up, I was pretty close to a rageaholic. I didn't learn great coping skills in junior high and high school. I was a bully. I always got my way by yelling. I always got my way by being threatening. And I brought that into parenthood. And I raised my kids at the fear of me for a long time. As my girls have grown up and moved out of the house, that began to change in my life when my boys were younger teenagers. The last 5 or 6 years, they were 13 and 14, and now they're young men. And I have been a different person, becoming I hope, a better parent every day. Learning more patience, learning to speak gently, learning to allow life to happen instead of trying to control every aspect of it. That hasn't been easy. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I want to cry because I know I failed for a long time. I know I didn't get it right. I know I hurt people. And some of those things I simply can't undo. But I also know that going forward, I can do better. Going forward, I can be different. I can live differently and speak differently and love differently. And that's important. But let me promise you this. It won't happen on its own. It won't happen by accident. Every tree in this world that's not alive is rotting. It's decaying. If it's not sucking nutrients out of the ground and absorbing energy from the sun, then it's rotting. The wood is drying up. It's turning back to dirt. It will become mulch soon, and then it will be fossil fuel. That's just the way life works. There's no metal exposed to the weather sitting out there getting shinier and shinier by the day. It's rusting and rotting from the inside. It's rapid oxidization. It's losing its carbon existence. And so are we. Unless we're intentionally getting exercise, unless we're intentionally getting rest, unless we're intentionally eating the right foods, unless we're intentionally building our relationships, taking time. I had a goal over this holiday season to finish a book I've been working on for 12 years. It was the intention that I set out. It was exactly what I wanted to accomplish, to isolate myself from the rest of the world and focus on that book and nothing else. Unfortunately, just before the holiday season started, my grandmother fell and broke her hip. She's 91. So over the course of the 4-day holiday, I spent 2 of those days on the road, a total of 10 hours worth of driving and riding, and 3 of those days either in the nursing home or in the hospital. So 3 out of my 4-day holiday was spent in the nursing room or out of the hospital. Now, I could have taken my laptop in and plugged it in and turned it on and typed away on my book. But what would be the point of being physically present with my ailing grandmother and not being emotionally and mentally present? Because trust me, when I write, I zone out of the entire world. I put on my headphones and you could start a fire in my shoe and I probably wouldn't move. That's not the way to spend time around family, especially at the holidays. I wanted to be very productive. God had another thing in mind. Instead, I got to reconnect with family. My mom and my sisters came up. My sister and I made the journey to Tyler by ourselves. We had a great conversation all the way down and back. We listened to the football game. We spent time with Grandma. It was good. It was good family time. It was very unproductive for writing my book, but very productive for building family. Twice in a passage where David talks about the fact that you're never without God. You can't get away from him. You can't go high enough or low enough, far enough or dark enough. There's never been a time in your life that God wasn't there, waiting for you to turn around and say, I need some help. You've never gone far enough that he couldn't find you or help you. You've never been dark enough that he couldn't shine the light in your presence. The question is, when you're in his presence, which is always, are you present of heart? Are you present of mind? Or are you checked out, focused on something that you want to be productive of, and allowing God to fade into the mist around you like a fire in my shoe? Are you more focused on what you want to accomplish than what God wants you to accomplish? Are you being the you that you know how to be rather than the one he made you to be? Over these next few days before the new year starts, you have a great opportunity to ask, like David, God, will you investigate me? Will you create in me a new heart? Will you look into my life and tell me where I could be better? Will you speak clearly to me on what I should stop doing and what I should start doing? None of us are getting better on our own without intentionality and awareness. If you don't have a life coach, get one. If you don't have a good book to read, get one. Live a More Excellent Life will walk you through this process as well. You'll find it under my name on Amazon. Live a More Excellent Life was me walking through this process. I want to challenge you not to sit idly by through these holidays. If you have downtime, especially whether you're out of school or you're out of work for the next week, you go back after the first of the year, take advantage of this time when the busyness of life has slowed down a little bit. Take advantage of these early mornings and late evenings to sit alone, get a good book or get your Bible out, and allow life to reveal itself to you in a whole new way. New ideas, new thoughts, new principles, new values, new you. I'm J. Lauren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Well, good morning. Here I am outside the Ritz-Carlton. We're actually setting up for an event. And I want you to take those words on the screen to heart, because it's a very powerful reality that there are a lot of missions and ministries out there trying to raise money. That's what we're doing here today, is a fundraiser. The difference between the fundraiser we're doing this morning and so many other fundraisers that I see, even ones that I've been a part of, is a really simple fact. If you want people to get behind what you're doing, you've got to show results, which means you've identified a problem, you've identified a solution, and you are the best capable, most powerful, presently available person, team, or ministry to bring that solution and that problem together, to bring a solution to the problem, to meet the need of the people who are broken, who are hurting, who are doing without. Today, we're supporting Operation Care. And I've been working with Operation Care International for about 4.5, 5 years now, as a volunteer, sometimes as an MC, sometimes as a speechwriter, sometimes providing audio-visual support, and sometimes doing all of the above in the same event. But as God has called us to work together with Operation Care, one of the things that I see is proven results, fruit, every single time. Every year, Operation Care feeds about 20,000 people, homeless and impoverished people right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the power of that is that you can look back over any given year over the last 14 and see marked progress, marked growth of lives impacted, souls saved, people who've come to know Christ who didn't have a relationship with him before. And all of these changes are taking place because the board, the leadership team, the volunteers, the supporters have one vision, to support the impoverished and the homeless of Dallas. Every year, the Christmas gift is a birthday party for Jesus, and they feed the homeless. If you're in a ministry, if you're leading a nonprofit and you're trying to raise funds, or you're just trying to build a new project on your own, maybe you've heard the old phrase, if you want to hear God laugh, just tell him what your plan is. So many times people have a brilliant plan all of their own. They've thought it through, they've written out the business plan, they've gotten the advice of many counselors, but they haven't bothered to ask God yet. And without God's passion, without God's oracle message in you, without doing that thing that God called you alone to do, that no one else is capable of, no one else is qualified for, no one else is available for now, God won't just get behind any random plan. He has his own. And it's perfectly executed, and it's well thought out, and he has all of the details worked out, including the finance and the volunteers and the people who will benefit and what change is it going to make in the community. If you find yourself struggling to find the funds for the ministry you feel like you're supposed to launch, I want you to take a moment and just step back and ask God, am I doing my plan or am I doing your plan? If you want to hear God laugh, just tell him your plan. If you want to see God move, then you're going to have to get your plan in line with his. You're going to have to move into that place where what you're doing is what he called you to do. There's an old phrase that says, where God guides, God provides. When Moses first started on the tabernacle, the question that he was challenged with was, will you plate the gold and embroider the veil, and will you also carve the gold, and will you also carve the acacia wood, and will you? And he said, wait, God, you got the wrong guy. At first I had a stuttering problem, but now you're asking me to sew and to carve and to melt and to mold, and I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And God's instant reply was, that's okay. I've anointed someone to do that part, and I've anointed someone to do that part, and I've anointed someone to do that part. The reality is, if what you're doing is within the realm of what God called you to do, if what you're doing is acting in obedience, then God has already provided the funding. God has already provided the gifted, talented, anointed people to do the tasks that you're not capable of, the things that you're not competent at. God has already put them in place. He knows who you're going to bless, how you're going to bless them, how long it's going to take. God is busy about all of that, and he has made a way and a provision and an opportunity for every one of them. I want to challenge you to ask that question. Are we lacking in funding? Are we lacking in team members? Are we lacking in fruit? Can we look back on what we've done over the last 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, and say, we've done what we were set out to do. We've accomplished what God put in our hands and said, you do that. And if that's the case, then you probably have all the funding you need, you have all of the staff members you need, you have all of the volunteers that you need, and you have evidence of the fruit that's been born from the work of your hands, from the labor that you put in. And if you look back and go, you know, here we are at the end of 2016, and our ministry, our nonprofit is broke, and we don't have enough volunteers to get the work done, and we're not accomplishing what we feel like we've been told to do. If that's the case, then I want you to back up for a moment and say, where did we start doing our plan and not God's? When did we abandon the people God told us to love and start living out of business? When did we start doing what we thought made sense rather than what we were told to do in obedience? I appreciate you being here with me. My name is J. Loren Norris from the Ritz-Carlton in Dallas, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Hey, so Loren Norris came and spoke with us today, gave us some tremendous leadership ideas that we can explore, taught us how to roar as leaders throughout the state of Georgia. It was so well received by everyone that was present, from our local unit, council, districts, and even our state officers. We're looking forward to having him again. Thanks for all you do, Loren.